Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing High Potential Season 1, Episode 13, which is the season finale. So definitely exciting. They leave you with a cliffhanger. There is a season 2. They've been renewed for season 2, so definitely glad about that. Before I get into my review, I just want to say thank you to everybody who likes and watches my videos, subscribes to my channel, leaves me comments. I thank you so much for that. So getting into this episode, a lot of information happens in this, right? Like I say, they've been renewed for season 2, so you kind of anticipate a cliffhanger. Um, Now, what kind of cliffhanger is it going to be? Is it going to be like a serial killer they haven't caught? I personally think it's going to be some kind of cliffhanger with the side story of finding Roman, because remember, they've kind of led us along all season with that. So I'm kind of excited to see that. And the previews from this episode, or for this episode, was kind of puzzles and games, right? So this guy is toying with the police, saying, if you dare or if you're smart enough, you can solve the riddle or the puzzle. So I definitely thought that was interesting. I love all kinds of games, puzzles, riddles, card games, board games. So to me, this was fun because I was like, okay, let's put the pieces together, right? And of course, Morgan excels at that. So, it was going to be good from that standpoint, too. You see a little bit of Morgan's family. So it kind of has different scenes. I'm kind of going to go over the scenes with her family, go over the case, and then I'm going to touch on what's going on with Roman and finding that because they do touch on that a little bit as well. So it opens it up kind of with a playful scene with Ava, because remember she's 15 and she's learning to drive. And remember Ludo, not her dad, but Elliot and Chloe's dad. And he's the Manny, right? So he is close with Ava, even though, Ava's dad is not in the picture, right? Because that's Roman. So you still have a father-daughter relationship with Ludo. And remember, he's like a driving ed teacher. That's what he does. So it was only fitting that he was teaching, Ava how to drive. So that was funny because, she was trying to parallel park and, it was kind of a cute little scene to start with. And then you see another scene because remember now, Ava knows they're looking into Roman. So they've kind of established that early in the season. At first, Ava thought that, her dad was a deadbeat dad and just didn't want to raise her. And now she's starting to believe maybe something really did happen to my dad. So she shows Morgan kind of like a scrapbook she's making of all these pictures. And it goes all the way back to her baby pictures, right? And Morgan's like, oh, what is this? Is this a gift for me? And Ava was like, no, I'm kind of making it for dad. If we ever find dad, I want to show him, pictures of my childhood. So that was kind of a sweet moment, right? Because she's open to the fact that something happened to her dad and she's not as, you know, um, upset about it as she was in the earlier episodes. So that was sweet that she was kind of putting something together. If they ever find Roman, if he's still alive, what's going on with that? So I like that she kind of came to terms with it and she's on the same page with Morgan now. Um, so I mentioned the case. So I want to go ahead and get into the case because there's a couple different victims. Um, the thing that I did kind of like was nobody really dies. They're kidnapped. And then, of course, Morgan being Morgan, she finds them in the nick of time. But the games that he plays is definitely interesting and how it gets started. He sends an email to Major Crimes. There's an attachment and there's a man trapped to a chair, right? Or tied to a chair. And the sign says 2 hours to make your move, right? So you're like, okay, what's going on, right? Um, and then they find, along with the clues, they find out who it is. And there's a black box, and inside is a puzzle. There's no picture. Remember, when you get puzzles, you always have the cover of the puzzle or a picture inside to show what the puzzle is you're putting together, right? So this was just a plain black box. So, they're like, what, we're going to put a puzzle together without the picture? What's the puzzle of? and then it just says a note that says let's play, like a big puzzle piece, a large puzzle piece that says let's play. So of course Morgan sits down at the table, boom, boom, boom. She's putting the puzzle together, and it's a map. So it's a map of the area, but there's one piece missing. So Morgan's like, no, the missing piece is where he is, right? And she's right. So they go to that location. It's kind of in a forest, or there's trees there, and you see puzzle pieces in the trees. Um, and it's another game. So of course Morgan is there, and she's trying to figure it out. They also find out that the first victim taken, that was tied to the chair, is diabetic. So the 2 hours is probably because he needs his insulin shot. So they're like, okay, we want to find him alive, but maybe that's what the 2 hours is. So it leads them, she does all the games, the pieces in the tree. Then there's hopscotch from, I'm sure you guys remember hopscotch. And she's putting all these pieces together to go to a storage unit, and they find him. They save his life. They come from his apartment, give him his insulin shot, and they're like, okay, great, we've got one down, right? But we still don't know who the person is. So then the next person, they leave a message with baby dolls. Now, I don't have a problem with baby dolls like Barbie. Most young girls have had dolls, but when you have a bunch of old kind of antique baby dolls together, to me, it's creepy. And in this case, it was supposed to look creepy, right? It's just not like Barbie sitting with Ken. These are like old-fashioned dolls. So it kind of creeped me out when I saw them. I'm like, oh, okay, what's the significance of the dolls, right? And then there was some, a note left in, almost looked like Scrabble pieces, right? Just little wooden pieces. It says the fun has just begun. And it was in the hotel where they have the police gala. So I didn't mention that earlier, but they do have a police gala. So at some point, they're all going to get dressed up and go to this gala. And Morgan's, date, the janitor where he went to school and college, and he told Morgan he was going to be at the police gala. So I kind of liked that because I thought that was a cute, hook up there. So there is a scene at the police gala where he comes and dances with Morgan. So I kind of thought that was cute because, like I said, I like that they brought him back for that. So Morgan thinks there's some clue with the dolls, but we don't know what, right? And it turns out Oz, the other detective, didn't realize it at the time, but found out he knew the first victim. He's like, oh, I've met him at a support group. A lot of people don't know this, but I lost my dad last year, and I was really close with him, and it really hit me hard. So I go to this grief support group, and he was there. And they're like, did he mention the storage unit? And they were like, yeah, he mentioned the storage unit to everybody in the group. And remember, he was found in his storage unit. So now we're starting to think, okay, maybe he's targeting the group because everybody in the group knew that he had a storage building and that's where he was. So they go back to the group meeting and they start like interviewing people. Did anybody stand out to you? Did anybody like to play games? And as they talk to people, Daphne and Oz kind of go back to the group, and they find a suspect. His name's David. He's not there, obviously, but they said he lost his sister and the family stopped playing game night. So basically, he's telling the support group, like, look, my sister died and my parents, like stopped having game night. And each week he talks about it, and each week he would get more and more upset. So he really liked game night, and his family stopped because of his sister, their daughter dying. So they're like, okay, this sounds great. This guy that's kidnapping people is playing games. He's like, wants to play with the cops. This guy in the support group. So I feel like, that's your typical red herring, right? Like it just seems too all together, right? Somebody's toying and playing with the cops. They go to the group. A guy's mad that his family stopped game night. Could he really be just playing games with the cops? A little far fetched, but that's a great lead. So they're going with it. So he hasn't showed up to the the group sessions in weeks, to the support group. So they're going after him because they're like, that makes sense. He's trying to play games. Um, so they find the next victim, because they find a group member didn't show up. So this one girl, Sierra, she always comes and she didn't show up. So now that they think David, who's obsessed with game playing and pissed that his family stopped game night after the loss of his sister, they're saying, okay, and now another member from the group is missing. It has to be David. He has to have Sierra. Let's figure this out. So now you have victim two. And victim two was the clues I gave you at the hotel with the creepy dolls and the the board pieces. Um, so they go to Sierra's house because obviously she's missing. They're like, they must have said some clues there. They find out it's a clue in the dark. They turn the lights out and it says you can't tell in the dark. So what does that mean? You can't tell in the dark. Well, Sierra is an ASL like interpreter. So they're like, okay, maybe because she does sign language. So, then Morgan figures out those creepy dolls, and Soto doesn't like the dolls either. Soto was like, get the dolls out of my bullpen. They're creeping me out, right? So I'm glad I'm not the only one. But Morgan finds out that the dolls like were spelling letters the way their hands were. So I'm like, okay, that's a clue. And they found out that it went to an location, which is an art gallery. So they go to this art gallery and they find her. They find Sierra is locked in a safe, right? And a safe, I mean, she only has so much oxygen. So they're like, okay, how do we get the combination of the safe? And Morgan figures it out from the pictures on the wall in the art gallery. She says it has to do with Jax. And they figure out the combination and they save the girl. You find a little bit of backstory about Morgan. They're like, how did you know it was Jax? And she kind of talks a little bit, which we don't really hear much about her pre-Roman days, right? We hear about her in Roman 15 years ago with Ava and her life now with her three kids. But this sheds some light. Morgan basically was saying when she was little, she would play, a game of jacks with some kids from school. She come home, tells her dad. Her dad has the same gift that she has. So her dad's gifted, and her dad basically says, "You're too smart to be playing jacks. Like you can't play with them anymore." So the little girl goes back to school and tells the kids why she can't play jacks with them because her dad says that she's smarter than that. So then everybody in school basically, doesn't like her because she thinks she's better than everybody else and she can no longer play jacks. So you kind of have that story from when Morgan was a little girl into this relationship she had with her dad, and it's not a good one, right? So, I mean, they kind of made it a point to have that story because even me telling you the highlights, it still took a couple minutes for me to tell. So, they took a couple minutes in the episode to emphasize that story. And like I said, it's really the first time you hear anything about Morgan's childhood before she had her three kids. So I feel like that might be significant and come into play in the future. Maybe somebody from Morgan's past comes back to haunt her or something that has to do with her dad. So it's interesting to know, at least you know where Morgan got it, right? Morgan got the gift from her dad. She gave it, she passed it down to her son, Elliot. We don't know about Chloe. She's an infant, but we know Ava doesn't have the gift. So that's interesting, right? That we at least know that she got the gift from her dad. And like I said, doesn't have anything to do with the case, just kind of a side story. She kind of opened up about her childhood. Don't know if it's going to be significant. We this is a finale, so it might be in season two. Who knows? Um, but then, they go to this police gala and Oz doesn't show up. And obviously we see he's the next victim. Um, Daphne is a concerned and worried something might happen to him. So she's the one who actually goes and finds him in his car, or should I say his car, like he um sees that he's missing, right? Like she sees that he was taken because the airbag from the car was blown up. So she's like, yeah, he was in the support group. That's kind of what we're going with. All three people, including Oz now, had been in this support group. So they're still going off the feed that David is the one doing it. But now they got to figure out where Oz is, right? And we kind of want to see clues. Um, so in the car, his tie, because I told you it was like a gala, so they're all dressed fancy. Daphne finds his silk tie. It might not have been his, but it was a silk tie. There's significance in the silk, and a note that says Marco. So, she's calling Soto at the gala, going like he's next. What does the note mean? So I'll rush back to the police station. Marco Polo, right? The game you play in the pool. So then they're like, yeah, but how many pools are there? And they're like, well, Marco Polo traveled on Silk Road, too many pools to check. Then Daphne, which I like, not Morgan. Morgan still figures it out, but Daphne's the one who says, all the notes have different fonts. Could that mean something? And Morgan's like, yes. So I like that it was Daphne's idea, right? Because we know the team helps out. I know Morgan's a star. She's the smart person, but I like, that they're giving credit to other members of being, respected in their field and they're good at what they do. So I love that it was Daphne who put that together. They figure out all of the letters make a word. And there's only, Roka, RHOKA. And there's only one house, and that's in Encino that has a pool, so he must be in the pool. So, they kind of figured it out quickly. They rush to the house. They find Oz at the bottom of the pool. Adam jumps in, and when he comes to, like, Daphne is giving them mouth to mouth, like they're doing chest palpitations, like trying to get him back, right? So Adam saves them, but Daphne's really there kind of giving them CPR. So you're like, come on, so you're kind of rooting for Oz. Um, and he finally comes to, and he's sitting in the back of the ambulance, because obviously he almost died. He's gonna go, to the hospital, and he has a kind of like a sweet moment with Morgan, because nobody knew that his dad passed and he was in a support group except Daphne, because you don't always share your personal life with your coworkers, right? Sometimes you do, but it looks like Oz and Daphne are close because he did share that with her, but nobody else knew. So he kind of has that moment with Morgan, over like he's having a hard time getting over his dad. And Oz says, I have some things to sort out. And then Morgan says, hey, we all do. And I loved that. It was like a nice, sweet moment where Morgan's like, look, you're still grieving over your dad. You said you have stuff to sort out, but we all have stuff going on in our lives. Like, I feel like she was saying, everybody grieves differently, is kind of the way I took it as Morgan. Like, hey, everybody, we all have stuff to sort out. You're good. Just take your time, I think. So I liked that kind of moment where Oz was kind of getting that vulnerable moment for Morgan. So after they find Oz, they put basically a bolo out for this David person, right? Because they think that's who it is, because he's missing from the support group. Um, Now, I'm going to go into a little bit about Roman and then I'll tell you the end, because the end, like I said, is a cliffhanger. It's the last episode. So you see the guy with Roman, and I'm excited with that. Geo. Sorry, I'm going to get back to my notes. Geo. Um, and he says he knows Roman. So he kind of goes to the restaurant where Morgan's getting takeout food, whatever. He goes to see her, right? So Morgan's surprised, but I'm kind of glad to see him because I always kind of thought he did know Roman and know things. So I'm glad to see him again. And he basically tells him Roman was afraid for himself and for the family. So he kind of indicates that maybe he disappeared on purpose. Um, but he doesn't say that. He just says Roman was fearing for himself and for you. And he worked with a lady named Layla Flynn. And then he spells it out. Flynn. So I thought that was odd that Gio like spelled out the last name. Like, I want to make sure you know this. So that's all he really says. He doesn't say much. He just says, it has to do with a lady named Layla Flynn. And then he says, give me your phone number. So later he texts or calls Morgan. I think he texts her and says, hey, meet me at a certain place, right? Um, some hotel in the morning, right? But he also says when he sees Morgan, do not tell your cops. I know you have cop friends, but I'm only going to deal with you. You don't have issues with the cops. I don't need to deal with them. I don't need people knowing that I'm talking to them. I'm only talking to you, but I will give you with more information. So Morgan kind of leaves. Obviously, she's got a photographic memory. She doesn't forget anything. So the name is registering with her, right? So of course she tells Soto and Adam, like, look, I met with Gio. Do we know, can we find out information about this person? This is the person, right? So they find out that Layla Flynn is an FBI agent. She was killed 15 years ago, same time Roman went missing. That's a clue. Obviously, 15 years ago, she got killed. Roman goes missing. She's been, Roman's disappearance is supposedly around this person's name, which, like I said, so there's a clue. So, but
Even though she was killed 15 years ago, all of her cases with the FBI are still classified. So could Roman still be alive? Could he be a CI? Could he be working with the FBI? Or could he have seen something and they killed Layla to try to get to Roman? Roman finds out, oh, wow, my handler was Layla. She was killed. I got to go underground. I got to whatever, right? So we really don't know. We just know the information that Gia gave him about this lady. She's retired, or not retired. She was FBI and she was killed. Same time Roman went missing. So I think that's very pivotal to the plot that, it happened at the same time. So Adam's like, look, Morgan, I'm going to go in your place. And Morgan's like, no, no, no. He said, no cops. But anyways, Morgan, I guess, gives in because you see the scene towards the end of the show. Adam visits Geo. So remember, Geo's like, meet me at this place at so in the morning. And he goes. So Geo gets mad, like, hey, I told Morgan no cops. I would only deal with her. And he's like, look, you obviously care to reach out to Morgan. Just tell me the information, right? And so it's like end of scene. So it's like, did Gio say anything to Roman? Because he was kind of pissed Roman was there. But at the same time, I feel like he does care. So I'm hoping he tells Adam something. But we really don't know because then the next scene is you see him in the police station. They're putting out a bolo for this David guy. So we've got 3 victims, one being Oz. They saved them all. So what's the next move, right? Because you don't really see any other clues. So you're like, okay, they going to leave us with a cliffhanger? Like we're going to have to wait till season 2 till they catch this guy, right? Because they saved all the 3 victims, but you're kind of waiting for what's it called, that next, the other shoe to drop, so to speak. You're like at the edge of your seat. Did you tell Adam about Roman? So you're thinking about that. And then second, you're like, they never caught the guy. What's the next move? We're getting to the end of the show. How does it end? And you anticipate a cliffhanger because let's face it, everybody has a cliffhanger for the next season. So there's this scene with Morgan and her kids. They're at the grocery store. They're putting groceries in the car and they're talking about vacations, right? And I'm like, why are they talking about vacations? Are they planning on like going away because they think they're in danger or something? I don't know. Or maybe it's just they're talking about vacations. Any rate, they're putting food in, something rolls away, like an apple or something. And a man, clean shaven man, comes up with his cart and he's like, oh, there you go. Oh, I'll take your cart. Or I'm sorry, he doesn't come up with a cart. He offers to take Morgan's cart away because, she's emptying her car. And, when you go to the grocery store, you always have to go back and put the cart in the cart rack. So he was like, oh, you dropped this pear and hey, I'll take your cart since I'm going in and you're leaving. And Morgan kind of looks at him. He's like, oh, thanks. And Morgan's like, oh, thanks. And he leaves. But there was something creepy about him. I'm telling you, as soon as I saw him and he came up and he handed them back at whatever fell and took their cart, something creeped me out. I don't even know why. I just got goosebumps. Like there's something off with this guy, right? So they get home. They're putting away the groceries, and Elliot says, hey, mom, and hands her a deck of cards. And he says something like, hey, great thought, mom, but we're too old for this game, and I think Chloe's too young. And it was like, I don't know, jungle match game or something. And Morgan, is like, I didn't buy that. She didn't say that to Elliot, but she's like, what? And so she looks at this card game and I'm like, yes, I knew the guy was off. So he slips this card game into their groceries. And if you look on the back, I paused it because I wanted to write down the quote. So it's like a little card box, you get like deck of cards. And on the back, there's a sticker and it says, and I quote, you're the one, Morgan. We shall play again, me and you. So that gave me the creeps. Like I said, as soon as I saw him approach him, I'm like, why are they wasting 2 minutes of the show with them loading food in their car? It means something. And then boom, you see this guy just go up. Oh, I'll take your cart back. Like, no, no, no. There's something off with you. So he obviously slipped this in and Morgan realizes it, but it says, you're the one, Morgan. We shall play again, me and you. And it's a game, right? So, like I said earlier, like they never caught this guy, but they're out at this bolo for David. Now, if that doesn't give you the goosebumps, then you find out that this David person that they're looking for, they find out he's in rehab and he's still in rehab. So then they're like, if we're not looking for David, who are we looking for? This entire episode, it's David's from the support group. He's targeted three people from the support group, including Oz, a police detective. Um, and who's he going to target next? And if he's not David, then who is he? Who are we chasing? A ghost? We had thought this time, the whole time it was David. And David fits, because he said he lost his sister, the family stopped with game night. Like, it makes sense. And now it's not him. So we don't even know who's playing games at this point. And you realize that right after she reads this note, which is like super creepy, right? So, I mean, that's a cliffhanger in itself. You don't know who the person is playing games with the cops. And now Morgan knows the guy who gave, she has a photographic memory. She saw the guy. She's going to remember him, and finds out for whatever reason this guy wants to play a game with just Morgan. So, first thought, does it have to do with Roman? Does it have to do with the case, or is this a complete red herring? Why did he kidnap all these other people if he just wanted to play with Morgan? Is it personal? Does it have to do with Roman? So then the phone rings and it's Adam. So Adam is leaving the hotel. Remember, Morgan was supposed to meet Gio in the hotel. So Adam did get information because he's leaving his meeting with Gio and he's calling Morgan. And he tells Morgan, I know where Roman is. He is alive. Now, Morgan kind of got uneasy when she heard that, and I got goosebumps just telling you. So, I mean, the last 2 minutes of this episode is so gripping, right? Because you find out that David has been in a rehab the whole time. So he hasn't been kidnapping these people. Who's kidnapping the people? Who's playing the game? Why are they, in pretending to be David? Are they connected to David? Like, why are they impostoring David, right? Is he just the easiest scapegoat because he's in a rehab? So, who's playing the games? Why did they pick David as, the person they're setting up, right? And three, who's playing games with Morgan? Is it the same person? Where's Roman? Right? Now we know he's alive. What else does Adam know? What else did Gio say? And what does this have to do with the FBI agent that was killed, Flynn, right? Layla Flynn, because they were working together. Like, what does that mean? Was Roman a CI? What does that mean? So there's so many things that they left as a cliffhanger. One, Roman's alive. What does he have to do with the FBI? Who's playing games with Morgan? And who is this guy that left the playing cards? So, I mean, obviously, your first thought is it could be Roman. Well, I didn't think that at all because remember, she's got a photographic memory. This was her husband. She had a child with him, yeah, Ava. She would have recognized him if it was Roman. And I don't think Roman would be older, right? The guy that did the cards, I think, would have been too young to be Roman, in my opinion. I think Roman should be older. I'm assuming probably around Morgan's age, and this guy seemed a little younger. Now, was Roman a CI? Is Roman undercover agent? Is this guy, playing with Morgan to bring out uh, Roman, because I think we've even seen it in other series, where, when somebody's deep undercover, they'll, kidnap or harm the family to try to bring that person out. I even remember, I think it was in CIS, one episode where they actually killed the man's father just so that he would come out of hiding and the mob couldn't snatch him up at his father's funeral. Now that's morbid. I get that. The mafia people are not good people, but I'm just saying we've seen that in other shows. So, I mean, is this guy toying with Morgan to try to get Roman to come out of hiding because they really want Roman and they know Roman will come out and, try to save his family? So there's so many scenarios of who's the guy that's touring with Morgan? What's going on with Roman? Is he still alive? Has he been watching them? We've seen from other shows too, when they're still alive, they still, try to see how their families go and how they're doing, even though they can't be in their lives. So there's so many variables. I love the cliffhanger. There's so much to think about. So, until season 2, which I hope we don't have to wait that long. Hopefully it's in September and not January, but we will have to wait and see. All in all, I loved this episode. I loved the cliffhangers. I thought it was done really well. It leaves me with so many questions. So I hope you enjoyed the series, since that's the finale for the series. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you enjoyed my review. If you have any comments, any theories, definitely leave them. I read all my comments. But until next time, I will see you then. Bye.